The dawn came pale and quiet over the town of Willow Creek, as if the land itself were holding its breath. Angela Whitmore stood alone in her bedroom, staring at her reflection in the small mirror above the washstand. The woman, looking back at her, wore a cream-colored wedding dress imported lace, fine buttons, and a fitted bodice meant to symbolize respectability and obedience. It felt like a costume stitched for someone else's life. Outside, the church bell would soon ring. By midday, Angela was expected to walk down the aisle and marry Horace Bellamy, a man chosen not by her heart, but by her father's ambition. Horace owned land, cattle, and influence. What he lacked was kindness. Angela's hands trembled as she lifted the veil from her hair and laid it carefully on the bed. She had spent weeks telling herself she could endure this marriage, that survival was the same as living. But last night, as she listened to her father toast her bright future, something inside her broke loose like a wild horse. She crossed the room and opened the small trunk at the foot of her bed. Inside were the clothes she had hidden in secret: sturdy trousers, a plain blouse, worn boots, and her mother's old shawl. Her mother had died years earlier, leaving behind only stories of freedom and laughter. Things Angela barely remembered, but deeply missed. "I'm sorry," Angela whispered to the empty room, though she wasn't sure if she was apologizing to her father, her town, or the girl she used to be. She dressed quickly, folding the wedding gown and leaving it behind like a shed skin. Before leaving, she placed a single note on the vanity. 1. Choose my own life. The back door creaked softly as she slipped out, the early air cool against her skin. Her heart pounded with fear and exhilaration as she hurried down the dirt road leading out of town. She didn't look back. By the time the sun crested the hills, Angela had reached the outskirts of Willow Creek, where a wagon train was assembling near the riverbank. Canvas-covered wagons lined the shore, oxen snorting and stamping as families prepared for the long journey west. Children laughed, women packed supplies, and men checked wheels and ropes. Angela slowed, suddenly aware of how out of place she might seem. A lone woman with no wagon, no family, and no clear destination was bound to raise questions. That was when she saw him. Tyron Hale stood near the lead wagon, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark hair tied back at the nape of his neck. He wore a dust-colored coat and a hat pulled low, but his posture carried quiet authority. He spoke calmly to a group of settlers, his voice steady and sure. This, Angela realized, must be the wagon train leader. She hesitated, only a moment before approaching him. "Excuse me," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm looking to join your wagon train." Tyron turned to face her, his sharp gray eyes taking her in from her worn boots to the determination set in her jaw. He didn't smile, but he didn't dismiss her either. "You traveling with family?" he asked. "No," Angela replied. "I'm traveling alone." That earned a flicker of surprise in his gaze. The trail west was no place for the unprepared, especially a woman alone. Tyron studied her for a long moment, as if weighing more than just her words. "It's a hard road," he said finally. "Dangerous. No turning back once we leave." Angela met his eyes without flinching. "I've already turned my back on the hardest part." Something shifted in Tyron's expression, respect, perhaps, or curiosity. "We leave within the hour," he said. "If you can pull your weight, you can ride with us." Relief flooded Angela's chest, followed quickly by resolve. This was it. The first step into a life unknown. As she walked toward the wagons, the town she'd fled faded behind her, and the open west stretched ahead, wide, wild, and full of promise. And neither Angela nor Tyron yet knew that this journey would change them both forever. The wagon train creaked into motion beneath the rising sun, wheels groaning as they left the riverbank and rolled westward into open country. Angela walked beside the rear wagon at first, gripping the wooden side as if it were the only solid thing in a world suddenly in motion. Each step carried her farther from the life she had known and closer to something she could not yet name. Tyron rode ahead, mounted on a steady bay horse, scanning the horizon with practiced eyes. He moved with the confidence of a man who had crossed these lands before, who knew how quickly beauty could turn into danger. Every so often, his gaze flicked back toward the wagons, making sure no one lagged behind. By midday, the sun beat down hard, and the novelty of freedom gave way to the ache in Angela's legs, and the dust coating her throat. A woman named Mrs. Caldwell noticed her struggle and offered a tin cup of water. "You're brave to come alone," the woman said kindly. "Or foolish. Sometimes they're the same thing." Angela smiled faintly. "I suppose I'll find out which." As the wagon train stopped for a short rest, Tyron dismounted and approached Angela. Up close, she noticed the weathered lines at the corners of his eyes, marks of hardship rather than age. "You ever travel this way before?" he asked. "No," Angela admitted, "but I'm a quick learner." "That'll help," he said. Trail doesn't care much for excuses. He handed her a coil of rope. "We lost a tie on the third wagon. Think you can help secure it?" The task was simple but unfamiliar. Angela fumbled at first, her fingers clumsy with the knot, but Tyron showed her patiently, guiding her hands without judgment. When she finally tightened the rope correctly, pride flared in her chest. "Well done," he said, and for the first time a hint of a smile touched his lips. As the days unfolded, Angela learned the rhythm of the trail wake before dawn. Travel until the sun climbed high, rest briefly, then move again until dusk. She gathered firewood, helped cook meals, and even learned to tend to a limping ox. Each task chipped away at the fear she carried, replacing it with confidence. Yet the past did not release her, so one evening, as the sky burned orange and purple, Angela sat alone by the fire, staring into the flames. Tyron joined her, lowering himself onto a nearby log. "You don't talk much about where you came from," he said carefully. Angela's jaw tightened. "There's not much worth telling." Tyron nodded, respecting the silence. "Fair enough. But whatever you ran from, it won't follow you out here." She looked at him then, really looked, and wondered how a man so steady could speak with such certainty. "Does the trail ever scare you?" she asked. "Every time," he answered honestly. "But fear reminds you to stay sharp." That night, a sudden storm rolled in, fierce and unannounced. Wind tore at the canvas covers, rain lashed the ground, and thunder cracked like a rifle shot overhead. Wagons rocked, oxen panicked, and children cried out. Angela rushed to help Mrs. Caldwell hold down a flapping tarp when a bolt of lightning struck nearby, sending sparks and chaos through the camp. She froze, heart racing, memories of shouting and control flooding back. "Angela." Tyron's voice cut through the storm. He grabbed her arm, grounding her. "Stay with me. We'll get through this." Together, they secured the wagons, calmed the animals, and waited out the storm. By the time the rain eased, Angela was soaked, exhausted, and trembling, but still standing. Later, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, she watched Tyron move through the camp, checking on each family, offering quiet reassurance. Leadership, she realized, wasn't about command, it was about care. As the fire crackled low and the stars reappeared, Angela felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was running anymore. She was moving forward. The land grew harsher as the wagon train pushed deeper west. Rolling grasslands gave way to rocky terrain, and the nights turned colder, carrying whispers of danger on the wind. Angela felt stronger, now her hands rougher. Her steps, sure but unease, lingered just beneath the surface, as if the earth itself knew secrets she wasn't ready to face. One morning, Tyron called for an early halt. Fresh hoofprints crossed the trail, too many. Two recent riders passed through not long ago, he told the group, his voice low. Could be traders. Could be trouble. Angela felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. The wagon train moved cautiously that day. Conversations hushed, eyes scanning the horizon. Angela walked closer to the lead wagon now. Near Tyron, her senses alert. She trusted him not blindly, but enough to know he wouldn't leave her unprotected. Near dusk, As the wagons descended into a narrow valley, figures appeared on the ridge above them. 3 men on horseback, silhouetted against the dying light. "Stay calm," Tyron said evenly. "No sudden moves." The riders approached slowly, their expressions unreadable. One of them, a thin man with a sharp smile, let his gaze linger on Angela. "Well now," he drawled. "Didn't expect to find a runaway bride this far from home." Angela's blood ran cold. "You know her?" Tyron asked, his hand resting near his holster. "No, of her," the man replied. "Her daddy's offering a tidy reward. Says she belongs back where she came from." Angela stepped forward, her voice shaking but firm. "I don't belong to anyone." The man laughed. "We'll see about that." Tyron moved, then placing himself squarely between Angela and the riders. "This is a peaceful wagon train. No one's going anywhere with you." Tension stretched thin as wire. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then, with a scowl, the man spat into the dirt. "Not worth the trouble," he muttered, signaling his companions. "But the trail's a long one. We might meet again." As the riders disappeared into the hills, Angela's knees nearly gave out. Tyron turned to her. "You should have told me someone might come looking." "I didn't think they would," she whispered. "I just wanted to be free." "You are," he said firmly. "And while you're with us, no one's taking that away." That night, the campfire burned brighter than usual. The settlers spoke in low tones, shaken but united. Angela sat apart, guilt gnawing at her. She had brought danger to these people. Tyron joined her, handing her a cup of coffee. "You didn't choose this," he said, "and you won't face it alone." She looked up at him, eyes shining with unshed tears. "Why are you doing this?" He hesitated. "Because everyone deserves the chance to choose their own path." Something unspoken passed between them, then a bond forged not in romance, but in shared defiance. As the night deepened, Angela lay awake in her bedroll, listening to the wind and thinking of the man she had almost married, the life she had escaped, and the uncertain road ahead. Fear still followed her, but now it walked beside hope, and hope, she was learning, could be just as powerful. The valley fell behind them, but the threat did not. For 2 days after the riders' appearance, the wagon train pressed forward at a faster pace, rising before first light and traveling until dusk swallowed the land. Tyron doubled the night watch and kept scouts riding wide arcs around the wagons. No one complained. Whatever fear lingered was matched by resolve. Angela felt the weight of it all settle on her shoulders. Every creak of a wheel, every distant bird call made her flinch. Yet beneath the anxiety, something stronger took root: determination. She refused to be the reason this journey failed. On the 3rd evening, Tyron found her practicing with a small rifle near the edge of camp. Her stance was stiff, but her focus was sharp. "You don't have to do that," he said gently. "I do," Angela replied. "I won't be helpless again." Tyron studied her for a moment, then stepped closer. "All right, then let's do it properly." He adjusted her grip, her posture, showing her how to breathe before pulling the trigger. Their closeness felt natural now, no longer awkward. When the rifle cracked and the tin can toppled from the fence post, Angela gasped, then laughed, a sound full and bright. "Well done," Tyron said, clearly impressed. For the first time since leaving Willow Creek, Angela felt truly capable. That night, the wind shifted, carrying the unmistakable sound of hooves. Tyron was on his feet instantly, signaling the guards. Shadows moved at the edge of the firelight. "They're back," someone whispered. The riders emerged slowly, 5 this time. The thin man from before tipped his hat mockingly. "Evening, folks. Thought we'd check again, see if the lady changed her mind." Tyron stepped forward, his voice calm but iron hard. "Turn around. This ends here." The man sneered. "You can't keep her forever." Angela moved beside Tyron, her rifle steady in her hands. "I don't need keeping," she said, "and I'm not going with you." For a moment, the riders hesitated. They hadn't expected resistance, not from a wagon train, and certainly not from a woman they thought frightened and alone. "Last chance," Tyron warned. The standoff broke when one rider reached for his gun. The night exploded into chaos. Shouts, gunfire, horses rearing. Angela fired once, then again, her heart pounding, but her aim true. The settlers stood their ground, defending one another with fierce unity. Within minutes, the riders fled, disappearing into the darkness as quickly as they'd come. Silence, followed broken only by ragged breaths and the crackle of fire. Angela's hands shook as the adrenaline faded. Tyron was at her side instantly. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No. Are you?" "Not a scratch." They looked at each other, relief washing over them, followed by something deeper, pride, trust, and a bond no words could quite capture. Later, as the camp settled and wounds were tended, Tyron sat beside Angela, beneath a sky heavy with stars. "He could have left," he said quietly, "before they came back." "So, could you?" she replied. "But you stayed." He nodded. "Seems we both chose the fight." Angela wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders. "I used to think freedom meant running away. Now I think it means standing your ground." Tyron smiled softly. "The West has a way of teaching that." As the fire burned low, Angela realized she was no longer defined by the life she fled. She had fought for her place, earned her voice, and discovered strength she never knew she possessed. And somewhere along the trail between danger and dawn she had found something else, too. A man who saw her not as a possession or a problem, but as a partner. The land opened wide as the wagon train reached its destination, a fertile stretch of valley, framed by distant mountains and a winding river that glittered beneath the sun. After weeks of hardship, fear, and triumph, the sight drew quiet wonder from every traveler. Children ran ahead, laughing. Families embraced. The long journey was finally over. Angela stood at the edge of the valley, taking it all in. This place was untouched, unclaimed by expectation or obligation. For the first time in her life, she felt the rare freedom of standing on ground that owed her nothing and demanded nothing in return. Tyron joined her, removing his hat as he surveyed the land. "This is where the trail ends," he said, "and where something new begins." The settlers set to work raising temporary shelters and staking claims. Angela helped where she could, her movements confident, her voice sure. She was no longer the runaway bride whispered about in fear. She was a woman who had crossed the frontier and survived. As dusk settled, Tyron found her near the riverbank, watching the water move steadily toward the horizon. "You'll have your choice now," he said. "Stay here, move on, build something of your own." Angela smiled, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "I already have." She turned to him, heart steady. "I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know I don't want to face it alone." Tyron was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. "Neither do I." They didn't speak of marriage or promises made in haste. The West demanded honesty, not ceremony. What passed between them was built on shared trials, respect, and a love grown strong without force. In the days that followed, Angela helped establish the settlement, organizing supplies, tending gardens, and offering comfort to others, finding their footing in this new land. Tyron remained a leader, but now he leaned on Angela's strength as much as she leaned on his. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky gold, Angela stood where the river curved gently around the valley. She thought of the wedding dress left behind, of the life chosen for her, of the fear that once ruled her steps. All of it felt distant now. She had chosen the unknown and, in doing so, found herself. Tyron slipped his hand into hers, not claiming, not binding, just offering. Angela squeezed back. The West stretched endlessly before them, wild and unforgiving, but full of promise. And for the first time, Angela wasn't running toward freedom. She was living it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.